Salve omnes, welcome to this video lesson on present passive indicative and present passive infinitives. So indicative verbs are for normal statements and questions like I love you, we saw him, did you like the show? So indicative doesn't have anything to do with a tense. You can have a present or a past or a future and it's still indicative. It's just about normally stating that things are or will or were the case and normally asking about things. So I love you, we saw him, did you like the show? Those are all normal indicative verbs. They have subjects like I, we, you, so on. Now, infinitives in English are verbal nouns starting with the word to. For example, to see is to believe. To see there is the subject. To believe is the predicate nominative. It's linked to the to see by the is. I want to go. To go is an infinitive, and it's the direct object of the verb I want. And then it is fun to play chess. And so there, to play is the infinitive, and it's telling us basically the subject. What is fun? To play is fun, right? Or specifically to play chess if we want to throw in the object of to play. All right, so in any case, again, infinitives start with to, and they are verbal nouns. Now, both the regular indicative verbs, those are the ones used for statements and questions, and also the infinitives, that's the ones with the to in front, also have forms in the passive voice. For example, we can say, he is seen. So we still have a subject here, he, and is seen is just stating a regular situation. There's nothing funky about it. He is seen. You could also say he is being seen. And then we could say they are heard. So again, we've got a normal old subject, they, and we're saying are heard. You could also say are being heard. So this is making a normal statement about something. But notice that he is seen and they are heard are passive. Now that means the action happens to the subject. He is seen. He's not the one doing the seeing, it's happening to him. They are heard. They're not hearing, they are heard. They are being heard. It's happening to them. And then finally, I've got a passive infinitive example. I want to be included. What do I want? Not this time to go, but to be included. And notice you've got a be in this infinitive, to be whatevered, okay, to be included in this case. That makes it a passive infinitive, specifically a present passive infinitive. Okay, so let's look at the endings for Latin passive indicative verbs. So we use these to make, for example, the present passive verbs in Latin. So you're going to have are, ris, tur, mer, mini, enter. And with the R, I put the O in parentheses because we're going to keep that O from the active and put the R on the end. Now, these endings, are, ris, tur, mer, mini, enter, they tell two things about the verb. They tell you the subject. Is it I, you, he, she, it, we, y'all, they? And they tell you that it's passive. That means, again, the action happens to the subject. For example, if you've got that or ending, the first one, it's going to be I am verbed. If you get the ris ending, that's a you singular, you're going to say you are verbed. If you get the tur ending, that's a he, she, it, so it's going to be he, she, it is verbed. All of these, notice, are passive, so it's happening to the subject. I am loved, you are loved, he, she, it is loved, happens to the subject. Now we've got one example conjugation here. Amor, I am loved. Amaris, you are loved, singular. Amater, he, she, it is loved. Amamer, with a mer ending, we are loved. Amamini, y'all are loved. And amonter, they are loved. I will point out that with all of these passive endings, except for the mini is the odd one out, there is an R in the ending. So you might feel that that R is kind of a marker of the passive, but watch out for the fact that mini is a weird one out because it doesn't have an R, and it also ends with a long mark. That's the only of these endings that has, only one of these endings that has a long mark. So there's that. And then the other thing, again, because these are passive, it all happens to the subject. So these things are done to the subject, right? Now, moving on to the present passive infinitives. So up above, we talked about like to be included. That was an English example. So present passive infinitives in Latin end with the long I. Usually that long I replaces the short E in the active infinitive. So for example, amare, to love, the short E at the end would be replaced and you end up with amari. But infinitives with an ere ending, short ere, replace the whole short ere, with the long I. And all of these are going to translate to be verbed. So that last exception there, we're talking about verbs like pono, ponere, to put, or sumo, sumere, to pick up. If you get something like that, the ere, instead of just replacing the final E, you're going to replace the whole ere with the long I. So sumere goes to sumi, or for example, copere goes to copy. So there you go. That's how that works.